Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto made a contract with Kyuubi for Unique Doujutsu Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Our story begins one warm October night in Konoha. Unfortunately for one boy that night happened to be October 10, the night the village celebrated the defeat of the Kyuubi by the 4th Hokage. What all the younger generations don't know is that the Kyuubi wasn't defeated and killed. It was sealed into a young boy by the name of Uzumaki Naruto. And so we join our young Jinchuriki on his evening. Come back here demon, I'll kill you for the family you murdered. Shouts of the same thing was being shouted by a mob chasing an orange and yellow blur. That blur happened to be Uzumaki Naruto, as he ran as fast as his 6-year-old legs would take him, only barely staying ahead of the crowd. Naruto was crying and it felt like his lungs were on fire. Yet he continued to run because he had learned after numerous times that if the crowd caught him he was in for a world of pain. But luck wasn't with him that night because as he rounded a corner into an all he realized that it was a dead end. He turned around trying to find a way out but the mob had already got in front of his only way out, the way he came. "We've got you now you demon," someone in the crowd shouted as they closed in on him. The ninja in the crowd started to throw kunai knives at the young boy. Naruto screamed in pain as the knives pierced his skin. As the ninja dropped back and the villagers took turns stabbing the boy with all types of weapons they could find and burning him with torches. Eventually they ran out of things to do to the poor boy, so they started to leave when they felt an evil feeling in the air that was easily taking their breath away. The crowd turned towards Naruto and saw blood-red chakra seeping out of the boy. He stood up, all of his wounds healed, and faced the crowd with crimson eyes with slits for the pupil. Without saying a word he seemed to shimmer out of existence for a second, then reappearing. He seemed to have done nothing, but then everyone's throat split open consecutively and blood sprayed all across the alley and there was a river of blood running out into the street. With that done, everything went black for Naruto. After Naruto had passed out, an Anbu in a weasel mask appeared in the alley and he was breathing hard and cursing the fact that he didn't get here sooner. The Anbu walked over to Naruto and picked him up and brought him outside the alley. After the Anbu gently set Naruto down, he turned to the blood bath inside the alley. With some hand signs he brought out a bottle of water and it took the shape of a dragon. The water dragon went roaring into the alleyway, washing away all of the blood in the alley. After he did that, he made a few more hand signs and shot a giant fireball into the alley, effectively disposing of all evidence that anything happened inside that alley tonight. After he did that, the Anbu turned back to the child lying on the ground where the Anbu left him. The masked person went over to Naruto, picked him up, and jumped up to the roofs where he jumped from rooftop to rooftop towards the hospital. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up to the sound of dripping water. He sat up and looked around. Somehow he ended up in a sewer. He looked up and saw a network of blue pipes running in all different directions. He got up and started to walk towards the only light source. After walking for what seemed for hours, he came upon a gigantic room with bars running from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Naruto walked up to the bars and looked at the seal that seemed to be the only thing that kept the bars closed. He was so fascinated with the intricacy of the seal that he didn't even notice the crimson eyes with slits for pupils looking at him from above and inside the bars. Naruto heard something breathing and looked up just in time to see a giant red paw come flying out from between the bars. Naruto jumped back and tripped and rolled until he came to a stop a few feet away from the paw. "Hey, what was that for you, jerk?" Naruto heard a deep chuckle that sounded full of malice as well as amusement. "That was to test your reaction time, kid. Why did I give you a boo-boo?" the voice said with a mixture of sarcasm and amusement at the boy in front of him. No. Naruto managed to stutter out under the extreme killer intent that Kyuubi was focusing at him. But he managed to strike up enough courage to ask, "Who are you, sir?" "I'm glad you asked, kid, and to answer your question, I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune." Naruto looked horrified. It all made sense now: the cold stares, the beatings, parents telling their children not to be around him. Naruto started to tear up. He looked at the giant fox in front of him. So you're the reason everyone hates me and beats me constantly because I'm a demon. No. The Kyuubi roared, its voice booming in the enclosed space. You are not the demon. If anyone's an evil demon, it's the villagers that beat a child. Not even us demons are cruel to our children. Kyuubi's voice was thick with killing intent as he said that. The sheer killer intent Kyuubi was letting loose knocked Naruto on his. Naruto looked up, eyes wide with fear from the gigantic fox. After a few minutes, Kyuubi calmed down enough to talk without putting out killing intent. I'm sorry, kid, it just pisses me off that those ignorant villagers would beat a child for something he had no control over in the first place. This also brings me to the reason I brought you here. How would you like to be stronger than the fourth Hokage who sealed me, and how would you like to have your own Doujutsu? Naruto was wary of the fox. Why would it want to him immortal? These thoughts raced in Naruto's head until he finally decided to just ask what was on his mind. Excuse me, Kyuubi, but why do you want to help me, a mortal, out in life? I'm glad you asked that, kid, because my reasons are very simple. You see, the way the seal that the fourth Hokage used to seal me into you is that if you die, then I die. Also, I've seen you life since you were very young, and I've seen the hardship you've been in. To say the least, you've earned my respect, kid, for going through all of that and not going crazy. So do you want to be the strongest shinobi ever and your own Doujutsu, or do you want to keep living as you are? Naruto thought about it for a while, but he still had some questions for the fox. What Doujutsu are you going to give me, and how are you going to make me the strongest shinobi ever? The Kyuubi chuckled. His amusement was of course the kid in front of him that everyone called stupid, proving the wrong. I will be giving you the Sharingan because I was the one to create that Doujutsu. I can alter your DNA to where you have it, but you'll have to awaken it and train with someone that has a Sharingan already. I suggest the Anbu that is with you in the hospital room with you because he seems to genuinely care about you, kid. And as for how I will make you the strongest shinobi ever, is I will train you one to control my chakra, and I will teach you ninjutsu, taijutsu, and some genjutsu, fuinjutsu, and last but not least I will fuse myself with you to make you into a hanyo or half demon and train you in the demonic arts. Naruto seriously thought about it and came to a decision. Okay, Kyuubi, you got yourself a deal. Okay then, kid, here's what you will do when you wake up. Ask the man in the mask if he could train you in the ways of the Sharingan, and tell the old man that after a year of training with the masked man you want to be able to leave the village for 5 years. And don't tell him where you're going. Kyuubi, where are we going to train for 5 years that we need to leave the village for 5 years, and what is fuinjutsu? We are going to go to Maki or hell to train and get you all set up with what you need, and that way I can teach you the demonic arts without worrying about someone finding us, and fuinjutsu is the art of seals since you seemed so fascinated by the one on my cage. Okay, that all seems fine, so is there anything else you need, cause I would like to wake up now. No, kid, I will be around if you ever need help with something or you need to talk to someone. And with that, Kyuubi threw Naruto out of his mindscape. Outside in the hospital, Naruto slowly started to open his eyes and take in his surroundings. The first thing he noticed was the Anbu Kyuubi said he should ask to train him. So this is the Uchiha Kyuubi wants me to train with in the ways of the Sharingan. The Anbu looked up as he noticed Naruto was awake. Naruto, are you alright? I'm sorry I wasn't in time to stop the attack. The Anbu managed to choke out, signifying that he had been crying. It's quite alright, Uchiha-sama, I know you didn't mean any harm by it. It was just a simple mistake. Thank you, Naruto, but if I may ask how you did know I was an Uchiha, the Anbu asked. Naruto smiled at him and said, you'll find out when the Hokage gets here. And as soon as the words left his mouth, Naruto saw the Hokage walk through the door. Hello Naruto, I see you woke up, stated the Santomi Hokage. Hey Oji-san, and yep, I just woke up and was talking to Uchiha-sama here about my evening, Naruto stated brightly. At the mention of the attack, the Santomi Hokage looked down ashamed. I'm so sorry Naruto, I'm sorry I couldn't be there, the Hokage stated somberly. Like I told Uchiha-sama here, there is no need to be sorry. In fact, I'm glad it happened. Because of it I got to meet my tenant and had a nice long conversation with him, Naruto said, dead serious while looking at the Sandemi. What do you mean your tenant, Naruto? The Sandemi asked nervously, hoping beyond hope that Naruto hadn't meant what he thought the boy meant. I mean the giant nine-tailed fox that's sealed inside of me. Naruto was looking at the Sandemi expectantly. The old man sighed. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Naruto. I was just trying to protect you, but I failed miserably. It's okay, Oji-san, I just wish you had told me sooner. Naruto got out of his bed and gave the aging man a hug. He stepped back after a moment and looked at the old man. Ojji-san, there's more to the story than that, but I'm going to need to ask you to get rid of all the Anbu in the room except Uchiha-sama here. The old man was confused at the request, but he motioned for the hidden Anbu to leave nonetheless. 4 shadows detached themselves from the wall and leapt out the open window. After they had gone, Naruto closed the window and turned to the Sandemi. Oji-san, do you mind putting up a sound barrier? Now the Hokage was really confused, but again he went through some hand seals and pressed his hand to the wall. Chakra covered the walls in blue before disappearing into the walls. With that done, he turned to Naruto and said, Alright Naruto, what's so important that you needed all that protection? Naruto looked him dead in the eye and stated, Kyuubi, have me the Sharingan. Needless to say, everyone but him had their mouths hanging open. The masked Anbu was the first to recover. He looked at the Hokage. Hokage-sama, may I take off my mask? The Anbu asked. The Sandemi could only nod after hearing Naruto. The Anbu reached up and unhooked his mask, taking it off to reveal Itachi Uchiha. Itachi looked at Naruto and asked, Naruto, how did the Kyuubi give you the Sharingan? He was the one that created the Sharingan by mutating the eyes of Madara Uchiha when he broke the caged bird seal on his forehead. So to help me get stronger, not only is he going to train me for 5 years after this first year, which brings me to 2 questions. 1. Itachi, will you train me and help me awaken the Sharingan and mastering it? And 2. Oji-san, I want to ask if after my year with Itachi, if he wants to train me, if I could leave the village for 5 years. Naruto asked. Itachi was the first to respond. Of course I will train you, Naruto. I would be happy to help you awaken your Sharingan and mastering it. Not long after that, the Sandemi looked at Naruto for a few minutes in thought before responding, I can agree with that, but only if you join Anbu after you awaken your Sharingan, because if you are in Anbu, the civilian council will have no say in what you do. Do you agree with this? Naruto took a few minutes to think. I think I could do that, Oji-san, but only after I awaken my Sharingan and have 2 tomes in each eye. Okay, then I'll leave you to your rest because Itachi will be starting your training tomorrow early, isn't that right, Itachi? Itachi only nodded. The Sandemi gave Naruto a hug before they both left Naruto to go to sleep so he could get started on his training early tomorrow. Naruto woke in the hospital to see a note on the table next to the bed. He looked at it and it was from Itachi, and it was the location they would be training in for the next year. Naruto got up and got dressed in his usual orange jumpsuit and headed out of the hospital and started to run towards the location that was mentioned in the note, which he burned with a small kaiden jutsu he learned from the Sandemi. He ran through the streets and he didn't even have to duck in and out of alleys to avoid getting beat by the villagers. It didn't take that long to get out to the clearing that Itachi should be in. He looked around but no one was there, but it didn't take long for something to happen. As Naruto stood there waiting, he heard a slight whistling sound behind him. It took him a second to realize what it was, and that second cost him. As he jumped to the side, he felt a white-hot flash of pain on his right arm. He looked down and the sleeve was cut and he was bleeding heavily. Itachi appeared in front of him and came over to give him a hand in getting up. By the time Naruto got up and dusted himself on the cut on his arm was completely healed. Naruto, today begins the beginning of your training for the next year. We will only work on taijutsu and ninjutsu until I deem you ready to awaken your Sharingan. After you have awakened your Sharingan, you will begin to study genjutsu with me. Do you understand? Hi. Naruto replied. Itachi seemed satisfied with that. Okay, then come here. Naruto did as Itachi said and moved to stand in front of Itachi. Good, now take off your shirt and shoes. Naruto did as he was told once again. Itachi pulled out a bottle of ink and a brush from his pouch on his left leg. Itachi started to draw an intricate pattern of seals on Naruto's wrist, chest, and ankles. Once again, like with the seal on the Kyuubi's cage, these seals fascinated him. Yet he stayed silent for the time being. When Itachi finished, he put the cork back in the bottle and put it and the brush back inside the pouch on his leg. Itachi stepped back from Naruto. Okay, now pump about 1/8 of your chakra into the seals, Itachi instructed him. Naruto, doing what he was told, pumped the necessary chakra into the seals and promptly fell over due to the gravity on his body increasing 2 folds. What the hell, Itachi-sensei? Naruto shouted as he strained to stand up. These are weight seals, however much chakra you put into them they become that many times gravity. For instance, right now you are at 2 times gravity. Do you understand? Itachi asked him. Hi sensei. Okay, then I want you to start running around the clearing until I say so. Also, you will be dodging kunai, shuriken, and jutsu that I will be throwing at you, so get moving, Itachi said with an evil glint in his eye. 1 hour later, Naruto collapsed on the ground, his chest heaving from lack of air. Steam was coming off him in waves as all the cuts, bruises, and torn muscles from training were being healed by the Kyuubi. Itachi looked at him fondly in one of his rare shows of affection. You did good, Naruto, you lasted a lot longer than I thought you would. Thank you, Itachi-sensei, Naruto said between gasps of air. With that said, he passed out from sheer chakra drainage from the running and dodging jutsu that Itachi threw at him. With the sky darkening into night, Itachi decided to take Naruto home for the night. He grabbed Naruto and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. He got to the door of Naruto's apartment to find it unlocked. Itachi opened the door and started to head towards the bedroom. He laid Naruto in his bed fully clothed and covered him up. Itachi headed back towards the door. As he left, he looked back and smiled. This is going to be an interesting year with Naruto around, Itachi thought as he walked out of the door, locking it behind him. Once he was outside, he disappeared back to his home for the night. The next day, Naruto woke up and groggily went about his morning routine. He got in the shower and quickly got out due to the freezing temperature of the water, due to the fact that his landlord is a fat lazy man that would spend his precious money to help the demon live comfortably. Naruto quickly left to go to the clearing to meet Itachi for his second day of training. He waited there for a couple minutes at the clearing before he heard a familiar whistling sound behind him. Without thinking this time, he dodged to the side, shot his left hand out and grabbed the kunai from out of the air. He spun the throwing knife around to hold it in a reverse position. Having spun an entire 180, he looked up to see Itachi standing there, same as yesterday. Your reflexes are getting better and you're learning to think faster, Itachi said in his cold, emotionless voice. Naruto looked at him before smiling his vulpine smile. Thank you, Itachi-sensei. Okay, Naruto, from now on we won't be talking, we are going to be having a taijutsu only spar, got it? Itachi said. Yep, let's do this. Naruto got into a street brawler's stance while Itachi got in the interceptor's stance of the Uchiha clan. And with that, the both dashed at each other, with Itachi limiting him to be only slightly faster than Naruto. With a clash of metal, they met in the middle of the clearing and started trading blows with both fist and kunai. Naruto threw a right hook towards Itachi's face, only for Itachi to duck under him and aim a fist toward Naruto's stomach, knocking him off his feet and rolling back a few feet. Naruto jumped back to his feet and dashed back towards Itachi, and they began trading blows again until once again Itachi knocked Naruto on his. Once again Naruto was exhausted. But he got to his feet once again to dash at Itachi, but Itachi held out his hand to stop Naruto. Naruto just stood there looking dumb for a few seconds before he got that the fight was over and stood back to attention. Itachi walked over to him. Good job, Naruto, you did far better than I expected you to do, Itachi complimented him. Thank you, Itachi-sensei, Naruto replied. Okay Naruto, now you going to do exercises to build your muscle mass and to improve you endurance, so get moving, Itachi told him. Itachi ended up having Naruto do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 crunches and so on. And after that he had Naruto run around the clearing at 3 times gravity for an hour. At the end of the hour Naruto collapsed due to exhaustion. And Itachi repeated his actions of last night by taking Naruto home once again unconscious. 9 months later, Naruto was up at the crack of dawn just like every other day for the past 9 months due to the rigorous Itachi was putting him through. Naruto got out of the shower feeling refreshed, awake, and relaxed. He had finally learned to fix the water heat for the apartment ever since the landlord suddenly disappeared one day. He was towel drying his unruly blonde locks that had grown down to midway down his back and was put up in a ponytail when he saw his reflection in the mirror. I look so different from how I looked when I started training with Itachi-sensei, he thought looking at his reflection. Naruto had lost all the baby fat on his face, stomach and chest, leaving chiseled and hardened features behind. He wasn't overly muscular and had more of an athletic build. After reminiscing for a while Naruto went to his bedroom where he started getting dressed. He now had an entirely different wardrobe now since Itachi had bought him some actually ninja clothes instead of the old kill me orange jumpsuits that he used to wear, which Itachi had a bonfire with. He pulled on a blood red muscle shirt and black Anbu style pants with red stripes on the side. He taped the ankles to prevent movement that would get in his way. He put on shinobi sandals and put on his Anbu mask. He went back to the bathroom and looked at himself one more time. He posed an imposing image in his wardrobe with the snarling kitsune features of his mask and the Anbu tattoo on his left arm. Naruto grabbed his ninja on the way out the door. He had his usual gear for another mission that he was finally getting used to the difficulty of the missions. He had 2 kunai holsters on each leg and a shuriken pouch the back of his belt right next to his medical pouch and his other ninja gear pouch. He jumped across the rooftops to go meet Itachi once again in the clearing to either get a mission or train. When he got there he saw Itachi waiting for him, so he walked up to the man with his usual grin even though he knew Itachi couldn't see it through his mask. "What's wrong Itachi-sensei? No traps or nothing for me to maneuver through?" Naruto asked in his cheerful voice. Itachi sighed. "No Naruto, not today. Today's special. Today's the day you will awaken your Sharingan." "Then why do you look so glum Itachi-sensei?" Naruto asked, confusion heavy in his voice. Itachi sighed again. "Because Naruto, even with the normal life-death situations all the S-rank missions we've been taking the past 3 months, your Sharingan hasn't awakened, which means you're going to have to be very near death to awaken it. This also means that I'm going to have to go all out on you, and I don't want to have to hurt you Naruto. I've come to care for you." Naruto was shocked before his features hardened. "Where the Itachi-sensei I know? The one I know would never back down. He would always get the job done, so why are you backing down now of all time? Come on Itachi-sensei, just do it. The sooner you get it the better." Naruto yelled at him with all he had. "Fine, if you won't do anything, I'll start this battle," Naruto said before unsheathing his ninjutsu and charging Itachi. Itachi activated his Sharingan and charged at Naruto with his ninjutsu unsheathed too. With a sound of clashing metal, the Kyuubi met in the middle of the clearing and started an intense kenjutsu battle with narrow misses before Itachi scored a hit on Naruto's chest, but Naruto kept it going. They jumped apart and sheathed their weapons and started a complicated series of hand seals. Itachi finished his first Kyuubi. Itachi inhaled deeply and blew out a fireball that took on the form of a dragon as it roared towards Naruto, who had finished his seals. Suiden Suiryuden no Jutsu, Naruto pulled water from the air just like the Nadime and sent it roaring in the form of a dragon towards Itachi's fire dragon. The 2 attacks collided and produced a cloud of steam as the 2 powerful jutsu clashed together. Naruto started another set of seal, Fuden Daitapa. Naruto concentrated his wind chakra to his hand and shot a concentrated blast of wind towards the steam, dispersing it from the clearing. Naruto saw Itachi standing across the clearing from him, not even looking winded, while Naruto was breathing hard from his water dragon and pulling the water from the air, something he's never had to do before. Naruto dragged up as much chakra as he could and dashed at Itachi again. They both clashed in the middle of the clearing and engaged in another kenjutsu battle. When the jumped away Itachi sped through hand seals faster than the eye could see. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, Itachi inhaled deeply, pouring a ton of chakra into his jutsu, and he blew out a giant fire ball stretching 155 feet in width. The fireball roared towards Naruto, getting closer by the second, with Naruto being able to do nothing. All of the sudden his eyes started to itch and everything slowed to a crawl. Naruto brought up his arms and started to channel Kyuubi's chakra unconsciously into his ninjutsu. The blade started to grow flames down the length of the blade. When the fire was white hot, Naruto slashed at the air. Midway into the swing, the fire leapt from his blade into a fiery arch that flew all the way till it impacted with Itachi's fireball. The two flames clashed and fought for dominance before Naruto's fiery arch sliced through Itachi's fireball, continuing on towards Itachi, who dodged. While the fireball split into two parts and flew to either side of Naruto, who Itachi saw had his Sharingan blazing with all three tomo in each eye, Itachi landed and walked over to Naruto. "So Naruto, I see you finally gained your Doujutsu," Itachi said. Naruto looked at him, confused about what he was talking about for a second before recognition struck him. Once he realized what Itachi was talking about, he started to bounce up and down, excited to have his Doujutsu finally. "Yada, I finally got it, thank you so much Itachi-sensei for helping me get it," Naruto yelled while jumping in the air, just like he does when he learns a new jutsu, or in this case gains a doujutsu. Itachi smiled, another one of his rare smiles, which were becoming a lot less rare since he started to train Naruto. "Hey Naruto, how about we go celebrate with some Ichiraku's ramen?" Itachi asked. Naruto's eyes lit up in excitement. "Alright, come on Itachi-sensei, let's go." Naruto made to run the entire way, but Itachi caught him before he could get too far. "Now Naruto, there's another jutsu that I want to teach you that I think you'll find it comes in handy," Itachi said. Naruto stared to ounce up and down at the prospect of learning a new jutsu. Itachi saw his excitement and decided to hurry it up a little. Itachi made a hand sign and disappeared from view in a swirl of leaves. Naruto looked around for him before hearing a familiar whistling sound behind him. He spun around and caught the kunai that was about to pierce his skull. He saw Itachi standing there and smirked, showing Itachi his activated Sharingan. "Good job Naruto, but don't get overconfident just because you have the Sharingan, or it will lead to your downfall," Itachi warned him. "Don't worry Itachi-sensei, I just wanted to test it out, that's all. Now can you show me how to do that jutsu you just did?" Naruto asked. "Okay Naruto, just deactivate your Sharingan. I don't just want you copying jutsu, I want you to be able to understand and master jutsu," Itachi told him. Naruto rushed to do what Itachi told him, cutting of the chakra flow to his eyes. Itachi watched as Naruto's eyes returned to their normal electric blue that some people could get lost in the depth of them. After Itachi made sure Naruto wasn't going to just copy the jutsu, Itachi showed him the hand sign for the jutsu and told him how much chakra to put into it. Naruto did exactly as Itachi said, but unlike with Itachi jutsu, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of flames. Itachi closed his eyes and tried to sense his apprentice. He finally got it and threw a kunai towards his location and was rewarded with the sound of clashing metal as Naruto threw his own kunai to block Itachi's. Naruto jumped out of the tree he was hiding in and approached Itachi. Itachi smiled at Naruto. "Good job Naruto, I'm surprised to see you get that so quickly," Itachi told Naruto. Naruto smiled his big foxy smile at the compliment. "Now Naruto, I think we should go get that ramen before it gets too dark," Itachi said, looking up at the sky. "Okay, let's go," and they both did the same hand sign and shunshined into the night to go to Ichiraku's. At Ichiraku's, Naruto and Itachi both appeared in front of the small ramen store that was one of the few restaurants that would actually serve Naruto any decent food without overcharging the hell out of him. Naruto and Itachi both walked up to the counter where Naruto leaned over the counter and called out to the people in the back, "Hey old man, you got some hungry customers up here, hurry up before we die of starvation." A disgruntled aging man came out of the back ready to cuss out whoever was talking to him like that when he say Naruto, and his face softened, all vicious thoughts gone as he saw his favorite customer. "Hey Naruto, how ya been doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. I thought I was going to go out of business because you weren't eating here anymore," the aging store owner said while laughing good-naturedly at his own joke. "I've been training with my sensei here for a while, that's why I haven't been able to stop by recently," Naruto explained while watching the old man cooking his and Itachi's ramen. Naruto's mouth started to water at seeing the ramen being cooked. It wasn't long till Tsuki had the ramen on the counter and Naruto was eating like he had had a meal in weeks. 30 minutes later, Naruto sat on his favorite stool at the ramen stand feeling like he was going to explode from overeating. Despite that, both Itachi and Naruto got up and shunshin to Naruto's apartment. Itachi walked Naruto to his door and watched as Naruto went inside and locked the door. Itachi stood there for a few more minutes feeling pride for his student and all the accomplishments he achieved. Itachi disappeared into the night with thoughts of the future on his mind. 3 months later, Naruto woke up feeling like shit after Itachi had given him the night off but forced him to accompany Itachi to the bar where they ended up getting completely hammered. Which is why he felt like shit, had a killer headache, and everything kept spinning. Naruto got out of bed and stumbled to the bathroom, and after puking in the toilet a couple times he got into the shower and started to wake up a little more. Naruto got out of the shower and went to the kitchen and put on water to boil so he could have some instant ramen. It was on his way back to his bedroom that he realized what today was. After his realization, he started to get more and more excited while he rushed through his room getting his gear on and sealing a ton of extra equipment in a scroll that he put in his shuriken pouch. After that, he went back to the kitchen and ate his instant ramen before locking the door and a quick hand sign later and Naruto shunshin from the inside of the apartment. Naruto appeared outside of the Hokage tower and proceeded to walk into the front door and tried to walk up the stair to see the Hokage, but the secretary threw a fit about the demon trying to attack the Hokage. Naruto quickly dealt with the problem by putting her under a sleeping genjutsu. Naruto proceeded to walk up the stairs and knocked on the door. The Sandami called Naruto into the office. "Hey Gigi-san, do you have my permit to leave the village?" Naruto asked. The aging Hokage smiled fondly at the 6-year-old boy in front him, one that was already in the Anbu ranks and respected and admired throughout the Anbu for his courage and willingness to put his life on the line for a comrade. Naruto was unflinchingly loyal and near invincible when protecting someone precious to him. "Yes Naruto, I have it right here and I would like to wish you good luck, and I want to inform you that you'll be attending the academy when you get back after 5 years and you'll graduate after finishing the next year. Is that okay Naruto?" the Sandami asked. Naruto thought about it for a bit before answering, "Hang on Gigi-san, let me ask Kyuubi, I haven't talked to him in a while." "Okay Naruto, tell me what he says," the Sandami tells him. "Okay Gigi-san," Naruto replies. And with that, Naruto started to meditate, and before long he was standing in front of the gate that holds Kyuubi captive. "Hey Kyuubi, get out here, I need to talk to you," Naruto yelled. Naruto heard a large shuffling sound before he saw the large crimson eyes of Kyuubi. "What do you want kid? I was enjoying my nap," Kyuubi said. "I wanted to know, it'll be 6 years before I'll have to be back for graduation from the academy, so should we stick to the original plan of being gone 5 years or bump it up to 6 years? Naruto asked the demon residing in his stomach. That's a good question kid, but irrelevant right now, just the old man. You'll be back in 5 years and we'll let him know if we're going to be longer than that, okay? Kyuubi stated, bored with the situation. Naruto mentally nodded to Kyuubi before refocusing on the outside world where the Sandami was waiting for his answer. He said, "We're going to stick to the original plan and let you know if we're going to be later, that Gigi-san," Naruto said. The old man nodded at him before getting up and giving Naruto a hug. "Take care of yourself Naruto and come back stronger." "I will Gigi-san." And with that, Naruto shunshined out of the office in a swirl of flames. Naruto arrived in front of the gate, surprising the two Chunin guards. Naruto walked up and presented his permit to leave on a training trip for 5 years. The guards looked over it carefully before giving Naruto the okay to go. Naruto jumped off into the trees that surrounded the village. Naruto jumped from tree to tree, going at least 30 miles away from the village. Due to his intense training with Itachi, Naruto arrived in under minutes, even with 6 times gravity due to the weight seals Itachi placed on him. When Naruto arrived in a clearing, he stopped and started trying to contact Kyuubi. So this is it, Kit. We're finally at this point in your training. You do know that once you return here you will be 50 times stronger than you are now, right? Kyuubi asked him, making sure Naruto was fully ready for what he was going to put him through. You know it, furball, I am not backing down at all, not until I am stronger than everyone else so I can protect my village. Naruto exclaimed at the top of his lungs. That loud nature of yours is going to have to be the first to go. Kyuubi commented sarcastically. Hey, shut up, Kyuubi-tem, let's just get this over with, Naruto said with a bit of impatience. Okay, kid, I am going to send you the hand seals and the info on how to do the transportation jutsu. Kyuubi started to pump the info directly into Naruto's brain. Naruto gasped at how much chakra it took to complete the jutsu. It took over half of his humongous reserves. But his hands started to blur through the hand seals. He went through all 200 hand seals in a minute flat and started to pump his chakra. When he had pumped enough chakra into it, clouds started to gather in the skies. A couple seconds after a large amount of the gray clouds had gathered over him, a bolt of black lightning flew from one of the clouds all the way to the ground, where it crashed, shaking the earth. The bolt of black lightning was stuck into the ground in front of Naruto. Naruto crept closer to it, and just as he was about to touch it, the bolt shook loose from the ground till it was hovering a few inches over the ground. The bolt started to expand until it was a swirling black vortex in front of him. Kyuubi, what do I do now? Naruto asked hesitantly. You walk through the vortex, Kit, Kyuubi mocked him like he usually did. Naruto stepped up to the vortex and taking a deep breath he stepped into it. Naruto stepped out of the and looked around at what would be his home for the next 5 years or so, depending on what Kyuubi decides. He was in a huge desert for miles that he could see, and clouds were whirling everywhere. Kyuubi, where are we? It seems we are in Shukaku's desert realm. Where do I go from here? Well, the Kitsune realm of the city is about 100 miles due east from here. It will take a few days to reach, but on the way there you'll be hunting any creatures that I say you can, and you will sell the pelts in the market before we go to the Kitsune's den. Kyuubi said. Okay, how long do you think it'll take to get to the city? Naruto asked as he released his weight seals and started to speed in the direction Kyuubi said the city was. Well, from what I remember, it's on the very edge of the eastern side of the desert, bordering on the dragon's realm. Okay, I'm on my way, Naruto said as he pumped chakra into his legs, doubling his already impressive speed across the inferno of the desert realm. Naruto had made it about 30 miles into the desert when he saw what looked like a tornado of sand coming at him from the side. Naruto, run, storms in the desert can rip flesh from your bones. Kyuubi roared at him, urging him to get a move on. Naruto started to channel some of Kyuubi's yoki into his legs in a desperate attempt to get away from the storm that was coming after him. With the demon chakra running through his legs, he barely managed to stay ahead of the dust storm. Naruto knew he had to do something soon or the storm would kill, like Kyuubi said. He kept running for a few more before he realized what he had to do. He started to channel a large amount of chakra and ran through hand seals faster than the eye could see. Doden Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, and with that he disappeared into the ground, safe from the sandstorm for now. But he now had a new problem. How was he supposed to get out of here? Kyuubi sighed. He knew how to get out of here, but he had wanted to wait until they were most of the way through the desert to do this, but he figured he had no choice since they were trapped under a sandstorm. Even the Biju avoid when in the desert, well, all except Shukaku, but that's cause he grew up around them. Naruto, give me control for a second and I can get us out of here, Kyuubi instructed to Naruto. How will that help at all, you big fur ball? Naruto stated with sarcasm, not thinking the Kyuubi could get them out of the situation. Then again, never underestimate a 10,000-year-old demon. You baka, I grew up here, I can just shun Shindas to the edge of the desert thereby bypassing the storm, Kyuubi stated in a growl, annoyed that Naruto had called him fur ball. Quote, comma, dot dot. Oh, that's how, well, that's all you had to say, Naruto said after a minute of trying to think of a comeback but coming up blank. Wow kid, even someone as dense as you should never question me, an all-knowing Kitsune, Kyuubi said, trying to strike a regal pose with a genjutsu of sun shining down on him. Shut up, fur ball, if you were so all-knowing you wouldn't have gotten sealed inside of me, Naruto yelled back. Quote, comma, dot dot. Touche gaki. Naruto slapped himself in the face, muttering about stupid foxes. Okay Kyuubi, I'm giving you control right now, after Naruto said that red chakra started to leak out of him, covering him from head to toe. His hair grew wilder and his whisker marks were more defined. But the most noticeable trait that changed about him were his eyes. They were no longer their electric blue that was his normal eyes. His eyes had turned into a crimson color with a slit in the middle of it. Ah, it's good to be in the real world again, Kyuubi said, taking it a deep breath. After that moment, relishing being in the world again, Kyuubi started to concentrate his yoki as he made a single hand seal, and focusing his yoki into it, he and Naruto both disappeared in a swirl of white flames. Naruto appeared on the very edge of the desert. The very first thing he noticed was the huge city he was looking upon, and huge was defiantly an understatement. The second thing he noticed was that there was a lot more vegetation here surrounding the wall of the huge city it protected from rouge demons. It was beautiful, Naruto had to admit. The only thing keeping him from being overly hyper like usual was the fact that they hadn't gained any pelts on the way back. Naruto started to walk towards the city when Kyuubi stopped him. Kid, here's how the city works. You're supposed to take that portal at the base of the wall right over there. Kyuubi indicated to a spot in the wall that did indeed have a huge vortex that was guarded by two demons of high class to keep rouge demons out. Also, the city is separated into two parts, Low Town and Down Zone. Low Town is for the nobles and common people and clans. Down Zone is, as you would say, the bad neighborhood, being where the crime is. That is where you'll find the Kitsune Den. There, once you get there, channel some of my yoki to let the kitsunes in there know that you are my Jinchuriki so that they don't kill you. Kyuubi stated, being absolutely serious for once. Okay, I'm going, but you'll have to give me directions to the den cause I have no clue where it is, Naruto said to Kyuubi. Naruto took off towards the portal, moving at a slow pace so that the guards wouldn't be alarmed and attack him. He made it to the entrance within a few minutes where the guards stopped him. State your business here, one of the guards stated in a bored tone, revealing how little action the two get in their line of work. I'm headed towards the Kitsune Den in Lowtown, Naruto said in a polite voice, hoping they would let him go through. Why are you going to the Kitsune Den? You aren't a kitsune at all, the second guard said while they both looked at him suspiciously. Kit, channel some of my yoki, it should let them know that I'm sealed inside you, Kyuubi said to Naruto. Okay, he said back. Naruto started to channel the yoki like Kyuubi said. Once he got enough to cover him from head to toe, the guards gasped in shock. KKKY Kyuubi-sama, we had no idea it was you, the two guards said while bowing. Naruto sighed in relief. You may proceed, just let us switch the portal to go to Lowtown instead of Down Zone, the guard said as he flipped a few switches and the portal changed from a rainbow color to a black color streaked with crimson. Naruto hesitantly walked through the portal. The first thing Naruto noticed was the houses looked pretty common, if being overly big, but he guessed that was because they held clans of demons inside, then kind of like in Konoha. Naruto got a little sad when he thought of home, but he soon got over it when Kyuubi started to direct him through the streets filled with merchants and their stalls shouting their goods to the people and demons alike on the street. Naruto had to take alleys and jump over houses most of the time due to the crowded streets. It didn't take him long to find the Kitsune Den. It was a huge house, bigger than most he had seen on the way to the very place he was now standing nervously in front of. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked through the door, and the first thing that happened was that he felt the cold steel of a blade on his neck. Naruto froze, seeing as the six-tailed Kitsune seemed ready to kill him. "Kit, hurry up and channel my Yoki again so he doesn't kill you," Kyuubi said in a panic because he knew this Kitsune and it wouldn't hesitate to kill a human due to demons' mistrust in humans. But Naruto quickly rushed to call up Kyuubi's chakra as it covered him from head to toe. The fox that was holding the blade gasped just like the guards had. And like the guards, he bowed to Naruto. "I am so sorry, Kyuubi-sama, I had no idea it was you, but if I may inquire, why do you look like that instead of your regular form?" the curious Kitsune asked. Naruto chuckled. "It's no problem, Kitsune-san, I am actually the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi," Naruto said to the mysterious Kitsune, "but if I may ask, Kitsune-san, what is your name?" Naruto asked the Kitsune in front of him. "My name is Akihiro, sir, and may I inquire as to your name?" Akihiro asked, curious of the name of his master. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto told the Kitsune. "Okay, well then, may I show to the bar in the front of the house, seeing as you came in the back, introduce you to the rest of the clan?" Akihiro asked Naruto as polite as he could. "Actually, Akihiro, my journey here took a lot out of me and I would like to rest for my training with Q-san tomorrow, so would it be okay if you showed me to where I can stay for the duration of my visit here?" Naruto said, being polite and not wanting to be disappointing in the beginning with the people he would have to stay with for the next 5 years. "Of course, it's right this way." Akihiro started to walk down the hallway and Naruto heard a lot of noise before they turned down a hallway and went up a flight of stairs. They turned right at the next intersection and Akihiro stopped in front of a door before he turned to Naruto. "You can stay in here, no one is using this room for now," the Kitsune told Naruto before walking away back towards the front of the house where the bar is. Naruto walked inside of the room. It was spacious and painted white, and there was a full-sized bed in the far corner of the room going across the far fall under the window. Naruto took of the book bag that contained his clothes and equipment inside a bunch of sealing scrolls. Naruto opened up the bag and took out the 2 scrolls labeled clothes and took out a kunai knife. After opening the scroll and pricking his thumb, he smeared his bleeding thumb across the seal in the middle of the scroll and channeled some chakra into it. There was a big cloud of smoke and a pile of clothes were sitting where the seal used to be. There was hangers going through all his shirts, both black and crimson. He started to hang up his clothes before unpacking his equipment. It was all the extra kunai and shuriken he had. It also contained exploding tags, ninja wire, soldier pills due to his harsh training style, and some seals. Kyuubi had shown him that you could store weapons in them and they had a delayed explosion, unsealing the weapons and scattering them in all directions. The last scroll he pulled out was labeled Anbu. He repeated his actions to unseal the scroll, and sitting there was his Anbu armor, his Kitsune mask, and his ninjutsu. He picked up his mask and rubbed it, recalling all the memories he had with this mask. All the times Itachi-sensei had drug him to the bar with their team and got him smashed, all of the mission he and Itachi had taken and the ones with his team. Those were good time, I miss them all. Naruto thought to himself, lost in memories. Naruto put his mask on the desk that was opposite his bed and he stored his armor in the closet with his clothes. And he put his ninjutsu next to his mask. With that done, Naruto crawled into bed, yawned and drifted off to sleep. Naruto woke up groggy from a deep slumber after passing out last night. He looked around him and was jolted awake before remembering where he was and how he got there. Naruto heard a loud racket going on downstairs, but he figured it was just people in the bar. He got up and went to the bathroom to relieve himself before stripping out of his sweaty clothes that he had fallen asleep in. Naruto turned on the shower and waited a few minutes for the water to turn warm before getting in and taking a quick shower. About 5 minutes later, he was towel dyeing himself. His hair had grown long, hanging halfway down his back. After he dried his hair, he put in the usual ponytail before getting dressed in a crimson-colored shirt and black Anbu-style pants, which he taped at the bottom so it wouldn't impede his movement and flexibility. He started to strap on his kunai holsters, 2 on each leg, before strapping on his weapon pouch before putting a length of wire and 10 exploding tags in the pouch along with 20 shuriken. And the last piece to get strapped on was his ninjutsu. He figured that would be enough equipment for the day. Naruto opened the door and peered into the hallway. Once he saw it was empty, he opened the door all the way and stepped out into the hallway. Closing the door behind him, Naruto started up the hallway, but at the first turn he stopped. He realized he didn't know the way downstairs. Before he could think much about it, Kyuubi pulled him inside his mindscape. Mindscape. Naruto found himself standing in the familiar cage room of the Kyuubi. It was dank, dirty, and flooded. Naruto made a mental note to ask Kyuubi how to change it later. All you have to do is imagine it is somewhere else to change it, Kyuubi said, startling Naruto. How did you know what I was thinking, Tem? Naruto shouted at the big fox. I live inside your mind, how can I not know what you're thinking, Gaki? The gigantic fox responded, leaving a dumbstruck Naruto. On Naruto's part, he couldn't believe he hadn't thought of that. Yay, well, whatever, do you want a change of scenery or not? Naruto said smugly, knowing the fox would jump at the chance for the change. Fine kid, you win this time. All you have to do is concentrate on what you want the scenery to be like, and that's how it will look, the Kyuubi explained to Naruto. Naruto got the basic picture and started to concentrate till he felt a warm breeze on his arms and the smell of salt water. Opening his eyes, he saw every possible types of terrain one could think of. From canyons, deserts, the ocean, and a huge luscious forest filled with animals for the Kyuubi to eat for fun. Thank you, kid, I have wanted to get out of that nasty sewer since I got put in there. And here I get everything all in one. This means a lot to me, and because of that I will teach you one jutsu that will help you throughout your training and has so many potential uses. Kyuubi told him. Naruto was bouncing up and down. Yay, new jutsu, he yelled, running back and forth in his mind. He did this for a minute before Kyuubi got fed up with it. Get a hold of yourself, kid, you were in Anbu, damn it, now start acting like it. Kyuubi roared at him, with the sheer volume of it nearly making him lose his hearing due to being so close to the giant fox. Naruto stopped and looked up at the giant fox in front of him. What do you expect, Kyuubi-sensei? You know how excited I get when learning new jutsu. Kyuubi knew the kid had a point, so he let it go for now with a few mumbles of roasting insolent kits. Naruto face planted at the childishness of the century-old kitsune in the cage. Okay, are you going to teach me that jutsu or not? Naruto asked as he was getting impatient with the giant fox. Yay kid, I'm going, and as he said that, Kyuubi glowed a crimson red and shrunk in size until he was only a little taller than Naruto at a height of 6 feet 5, since Naruto had grown a lot during his time with Itachi. When Naruto saw the man, he was shocked. Standing in front of him was a pale white man with long crimson red hair and 9 furry red tails behind him, each tip was black. And instead of normal ears, Kyuubi's were located on top of his head. But the most noticeable feature about him was his fiery red eyes with slits for pupils. Hello, kid, this is what is called a Hanyo form, which you will be getting in a few years after you and I have merged. But that is not why you are here. I wanted to show you this jutsu because it's very handy for learning multiple subjects at one. Kyuubi explained while bringing his hands up to form a cross. With a cry of shadow clone jutsu, there was an exact copy of Kyuubi standing next to the original. Naruto's eyes widened until they were the size of saucers and a little drool slid out his mouth. Kid, you okay there? Kyuubi asked with concern for his young apprentice. Naruto seemed to snap out of it before running in circles. Wow, that was so cool. There could be unlimited possibilities for tracking, scouting without getting in harm's way, tricking your enemies, and overloading an opponent so they lose. Kyuubi snickered at the young boy in front of him, though he had to admit he was impressed with the amount of uses the kid came up with so quickly. Oh yes, I'm going to enjoy the look on his face when I tell what the other use for the technique is. Kyuubi laughed inside his own head. Kid, settle down, there is another key thing about this jutsu that makes it so good for training purposes. Whatever the clone reads or hears or any other form of knowledge the clone attains is transferred back to you, letting you do twice the amount of work than you would normally be able to do. Naruto was jumping up and down at the possibilities that could come with this jutsu. So with the knowledge of how to do the jutsu, he exited his mind. Outside world. Naruto once again found himself facing the maze of hallways, except this time he smirked. He brought his hands up into a cross, and with the cry of Shadow Clone Jutsu, there was a cloud of smoke, and when it cleared there were 6 Narutos standing in the hallways. "Okay guy," said the original, "each of you take a hallway, and when you reach the end disperse yourselves, and if you manage to find the door leading to the bar, I want you to relay which of you was the one to reach it." At that, all of the shadow clones ran off in a different direction down the hallways. It took all of 5 minutes before the clone that found the door, killed himself, and the real Naruto received the information of where the door was. Running through the halls, it took Naruto a few minutes to reach the door. Right as he was about to open it, Akihiro stepped through the door, running right into Naruto. Naruto rubbed his head, which was rapidly forming a headache due to running head first into the big kitsune. "Oh hey, I see that you've awakened, would you like to meet everyone?" Akihiro asked, helping Naruto off his feet. They both turned around and walked into the bar. "Hey everyone, this is the boy I was telling you all about," Akihiro called to the inhabitants of the Fox's Den, which Naruto could now see was all kitsunes. Everything stopped as soon as Akihiro announced Naruto's presence to the rest of the kitsunes. It was a tense moment until he broke it by smiling his vulpine smile and saying, "Hi everyone." The kitsune started to crowd around him, every one of them sniffing Naruto with their enhanced sense of smell. "Yep, he smells like Kyuubi-san alright," one of the vixen in the crowd stated, and with that everyone started to introduce themselves to him. As each one of the kitsune that passed him, he memorized their face and name. "Kit, don't forget we have training in the back, say goodbye to everyone and get going," Kyuubi told him, sending the directions directly to his brain. Naruto started to say his goodbyes, stating that he had to go train with Kyuubi in the back. Naruto made his way through the huge bar house. He turned down numerous hallways before finally arriving at a door, which when he stepped through it, he say led to a huge outdoor dojo filled with equipment. Naruto was practically radiating joy at the training equipment Kyuubi had in this place. There were things in here that he would never have been able to get a hold of in Konoha. "Kit, come in here, there's one more thing that needs to be taken care of for us to be able to continue," Kyuubi said while forcefully dragging Naruto into the new and improved mindscape. Mindscape. Naruto was standing next to the sea beside the human form of Kyuubi. "What do you need, you old fox?" Naruto asked, a little heatedly, impatient that Kyuubi wasn't letting him train. "Kit, there's a problem with me training you at the moment," Kyuubi started out. "And what would that be?" Naruto asked, genuinely curious of why Kyuubi would have trouble training him. "I never said I would have trouble training you, I just said that we would have a problem in our current situation," Kyuubi said, a little annoyed at his apprentice. "You do know that's completely weird the way you can read my mind," Naruto said. "You're completely missing the point. The point is I can't teach you to your full potential while I'm stuck in your head, so to fix this problem I will be giving you the Kitsune summoning contract." After Kyuubi said that, a huge scroll almost as tall as Naruto appeared next to him. With his nose he pushed the scroll on its side. "Now kid, I want you to unroll this scroll and sign your name in blood, then put all your fingerprints of the hand you wish to summon with under your name," Kyuubi explained to an awestruck Naruto. Naruto unrolled the scroll just like Kyuubi told him to, and he saw blank columns all across the scroll. He looked at Kyuubi questioningly. Kyuubi sighed. "Kit, you should be very honored. You are the first person ever that has gained enough of my respect for me to let you sign this contract. Your father earned my respect, but he died before I could even think of letting him sign it. Plus he had already signed the summoning scroll of toads," Kyuubi informed Naruto as he signed his name and pressed all of his fingers on his right hand to his bleeding thumb and pressing them to the scroll under his name. The scroll glowed red for a second before returning to normal. Naruto got up and looked at Kyuubi for instructions. "Okay kid, now roll up their scroll and return to the outside and practice the jutsu. I want you to try to summon me on the first try though," Kyuubi said. "But how do I do that, Kyuubi-sensei?" Naruto asked, as he didn't have the slightest clue how the jutsu worked. "All you have to do is pump a massive amount of chakra into the jutsu and you should summon me, but we'll see if you can actually do it," Kyuubi said tauntingly, knowing that if he got Naruto to set his mind to it, then the kid would be able to pull it off through sheer willpower alone. Sure enough, Naruto's eyes hardened. Don't you worry, Kyuubi, you'll be joining me in a few moments. With that, Naruto started to disappear from his mindscape. Real world. Naruto got up from the ground where he had gone unconscious after Kyuubi had pulled him into his own mindscape. Kit, these are the hand seals for the jutsu, and remember to summon me. All you have to do is pump as much chakra into the jutsu as you can, and you'll need a little bit of my own chakra to pull it off too. Kyuubi informed Naruto as he sent the hand seals into Naruto's head. No problem, Kyuubi-sensei, Naruto said with a huge smile. Naruto reached down deep and felt for Kyuubi's chakra. It didn't take him long to locate it. Kyuubi's chakra felt wild to him, something that he had a hard time gathering for the jutsu, but he was soon covered from head to toe in red, opened his eyes and took out a kunai knife and slashed at his right hand, leaving a LNG cut in the palm. He started to do the head seals slowly as he made sure each one was right, and he channeled all of Kyuubi's chakra into the jutsu and slammed his hand on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. There was a puff of smoke and Naruto backed up. Hello kid, it's good to be free. Kyuubi was standing there in his Hanyo form smirking at Naruto. I hope you're ready for your training, kid, cause it's gonna be hell. Konoha. 6 years later. A figure in a rust-red cloak moved up the road to Konoha. The figure had a hood over its face so no one could identify the person. It hasn't changed much, has it? The figure asked himself as he finally saw the city looming nearer. The guards at the gates of the gigantic city were bored as hell. There hadn't been a single person through the gate all day. Suddenly one of the guards looked up to see a figure in a cloak with its hood up walking down the road to the village. Halt, the guard said to the figure as it was about to pass through the gate. What's your business here, stranger? The guard asked the figure. Just returning from a long journey, it replied. Here are the papers you require, and I am pretty sure they are in order. Let me know if they are not, the figure said to the guard. The guard looked over the papers and gasped. We all thought you had died, the guard said to the figure, surprised as hell. Well, that's a shame. I guess I'll have to let Gramps know I'm alive and very, very well, the figure said. Well, everything's in order here. Welcome back to Konoha. The guard waved the figure through the gates. The figure walked about 10 feet into the village before a bolt of lightning struck the ground where the figure was and it was gone. Hokage's office. The Sandaime was doing the bane of all cages, paperwork, and he was praying to Kami for a distraction. He got his wish with a clap of thunder. A figure in a rust-red robe with a hood over its face appeared in his office. The Sandaime, thinking it was an attack, sped through hand seals and launched a fireball at the figure. Just as the fireball was about to hit it, the figure stuck a hand onto of one of the oversized sleeves and knocked the fireball to the side, igniting the office with fire. The figure sped through a complex series of one-handed seals, and a jet of water sprouted out of its hand. The figure used it to douse the fire before the figure turned to the stunned Sandaime. The Sandaime was stunned that the figure could so effortlessly batted aside his fireball. Who are you and what is your business in Konoha? The Sandaime asked the figure. I'm hurt, Gigi-san, you don't recognize me at all. With that, the figure pulled its hood off and it was none other than Naruto, smiling his foxy smile. Sarutobi was sitting in his office doing the bane of all cages, paperwork. There was a never-ending supply of the damn things. Sarutobi briefly wondered if there was a multiplying jutsu on the stack of paperwork. He quickly shook that thought and continued doing the paperwork, while praying to Kami that a distraction would come along. It seemed as though luck was on his side today as a bolt of thunder rang through his office as a figure in a rust-red cloak with the hood up appeared in his office. Sarutobi, not used to that type of shunshin, thought it was an attack. Speeding through a few short hand seals, the old Hokage launched a fireball at the figure. It was seconds away from hitting the figure when it knocked the fireball to the side. Speeding through a complex series of one-handed seals and a jet of water sprouted from his hand. Sarutobi was stunned. This person effortlessly batted his attack aside. The Sandaime didn't even know it was possible to physically push aside a jutsu. He watched as the figure doused the fire in his office before turning to the Sandaime. Who are you and what are you doing in my office? Sarutobi asked the figure, still on edge should the figure attack him. I'm hurt, Gigi-san, you don't recognize me? The figure asked, taking its hood off, and there stood Naruto grinning his big foxy smile at the sandame. The sandame stood there shocked. Naruto had grown, his hair was even longer than before. It was nearly as long as Jiraiya's, and there were black and red highlights in his hair. All the baby fat was gone from his face, leaving it chiseled as strong. The sandame thought he had seen a ghost. Naruto looked almost exactly like the Yondaime, except for the whiskers and the highlights. Are you okay, Gigi-san? Naruto asked with concern on his face. Sarutobi gave a start and looked at Naruto again, noticing the changes this time. Naruto, what happened to your hair? Sarutobi asked the blonde. That's going to take a lot of explaining to do, Gigi-san. Naruto said, his demeanor changed in an instant. This put Sarutobi on guard, never knowing Naruto to be this serious. Why is that, Naruto? Sarutobi asked the blonde shinobi. Why don't we sit down and I'll explain everything? Naruto said, gesturing for them to sit down. Sarutobi sat down behind his desk, listening intently to Naruto. Well, it started around the 5th year with Kyuubi training me. He started to train me in demonic arts, and with me being human I wasn't able to draw on his yoki, so he changed me. Naruto said, looking at the Hokage carefully to see what his reaction was. What do you mean by he changed you? Sarutobi asked, figuring the answer, but he wanted to confirm it. Naruto stood up and brought his hands up into the ram seal and started to channel chakra. Kai, Naruto said calmly, and he dropped the genjutsu he had on his features. Sarutobi was shocked. Standing before him was a different Naruto than a second ago. Naruto had 9 blonde tails waving behind him, elongated canines, claws, and his whisker marks were more defined. Think Kyuubi Naruto. To say Sarutobi was shocked would be like saying Orochimaru wasn't a gay pedophile. He couldn't believe that Naruto had become almost a mini Kyuubi. Naruto, I am guessing you are now a Hanyo, are you not? Sarutobi asked a little suspiciously. Yes, I am a Hanyo now. It was the only way for me to be able to use Kyuubi's yoki without killing myself or shorting my lifespan. Naruto said with a sigh. Well, the best thing we can do now is keep this a secret from everyone and going on as if nothing happened. Sarutobi said, looking at Naruto with a little sympathy. Should the villagers find out, they would try to kill him. Sarutobi knew this and prayed to Kami that no one would find out for Naruto's sake. All that's left to do now is enroll you in the academy and hope for the best right now. You will be put in the graduating class as was agreed on before you left. Sarutobi said, trying to finish this business up so he could hopefully finish his paperwork. That's fine, but will I be able to do Anbu missions while I'm in the academy, at least until I get assigned to a team? Naruto asked the Hokage, hoping he would say yes. I don't know about that, Naruto. That could compromise your actual skill level, and you should try and lay low for the time being. Sarutobi told Naruto, hoping he wouldn't be disappointed. Naruto gave his feral grin, knowing he still had an ace up his sleeve. What if I told you how to defeat your paperwork? Naruto stated, grinning as he saw the sandame's eyes widen. Sarutobi all but leapt over the desk at him. How? Was all the Hokage said as the temperature dropped a few degrees. I'll tell you if you let me do Anbu missions only while I'm in the academy. Naruto said, knowing he had this deal done already. Fine, just tell me how to do it. Sarutobi said, not caring except for the answer to how to defeat his mortal enemy. Ever thought of using shadow clones? Naruto said, his grin only getting wider. Sarutobi just stood there looking blank for a few minutes before going to his desk, sitting down, and he started banging his head on his desk, muttering stupid over and over again. Naruto just laughed. Hey, I'm going to head home. What time should I be at the academy in the morning? Naruto asked, getting up. Sarutobi stopped banging his head for a second. Be there at 9, and then he resumed banging his head on his desk. Naruto just laughed like a maniac and disappeared in a swirl of flames. Naruto appeared outside his apartment in a swirl of flames. He had left the key to the apartment inside the apartment, so he had to pick the lock. Several minutes later he opened the door and walked inside. Flicking on the lights, Naruto walked farther into the apartment, looking around at the dusty furniture. Wow, 5 years really does leave a lot of dust, Naruto said to himself. Naruto formed a hand seal and 5 cage bushins popped into existence next to the original. Okay guy, your job is to clean the apartment, just disperse yourselves when you're done, Naruto told the clones and left for the bedroom. While the clones cleaned the house, Naruto started to undress and started to unseal all of his clothes and equipment from his storage scrolls he took with him to Maki. Once he had put all of his stuff away, he climbed into bed. Turning off the light next to him, he let himself drift off to sleep with thoughts about what tomorrow was going to be like. Naruto groggily woke up the next morning. He got up and stumbled to the bathroom and turned on the shower. While waiting for the water to get hot, Naruto relieved himself. Going to have to up my weights for training with Q-sensei. Naruto stepped into the shower and washed up. About 20 minutes later he stepped out of the shower and started to towel dry his hair. When he walked out of the bathroom he froze. How the hell did I get back to Konoha? Naruto thought to himself before the memories from the night before rushed back into his head. Naruto looked at the clock and started to freak out. It was 8:48, he had 12 minutes to get to the academy on time. Instead of continuing to dry himself off with the towel, he channeled a bunch of chakra and it spun around him, his half-demon chakra drying him off due to the heat. Naruto pulled on a crimson muscle shirt on and put on some black Anbu-style pants with the bottom of the legs tapped for increased maneuverability. He filled his kunai holsters and put the usual 2 in each leg, on each leg. And he filled his weapons pouch with 20 shuriken, a length of wire, 15 exploding tags, 5 smoke bombs, and some of his multi-dimensional exploding tags. Basically he seals weapons into the tags and sets them like a regular exploding tag and they explode, sending the weapons in all directions. With all of that done, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of flames in his usual shunshin. At the academy, the class was going about their normal day. The children sat chatting with each other while they waited for their teacher to walk in and start the lessons. And speaking of the teacher, he walked into the classroom and after shouting for a few minutes he managed to settle the class down enough to begin teaching. Just as he was about to start on the lesson, a huge swirl of flames started to spiral in the space next to his desk. After a few seconds the flames died down, leaving a smiling Naruto in its place. All of the students were awestruck at what they thought was a display of power. Little did they know that was only a little trick of Naruto's that he learned in Maki while he was there. Naruto turned to the teacher to see a vein bulging on the teacher's head. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. So am I late? He asked the teacher, and everyone in the room face faulted at hearing his question. Not by much, but please in the future don't arrive in that fashion again, the teacher said to him. Now I'm going to guess that you're Naruto, the new student that Hokage-sama said was going to be attending the academy in my class, am I right? The teacher inquired of the young boy. Naruto's eyes hardened as he looked at the surprised teacher. Never guess at anything if you are a ninja, because that could very well be the last mistake you ever make, Naruto said a little coldly. The teacher was a little surprised at how cold Naruto got, but he knew that Naruto was right, so he didn't say anything about it. Since you're new here, will you introduce yourself to the class? The teacher asked of our blonde hero. Sure, Naruto said as he turned to the class. Hi everyone, my name is Naruto. Most of you have probably never seen me before. This is due to the fact that I have been out of the village for the past 6 years, but now I'm back and ready to become a shinobi of this village, Naruto said to the class. I bet you don't even know how to use a kunai, right? Said a pale dark-haired boy in the corner of the class. Yay Sasuke-kun, you're right, I bet he can't even throw one straight. A pink-haired banshee in front of said emo boy screamed, deafening nearly half of the class, especially Naruto with his enhanced hearing. The emo boy just looked at the girl with disdain. Naruto looked the banshee over and noticed that she was just a weak fangirl that was probably obsessed with the emo boy in the corner. So to put her somewhat in her place, Naruto took out a kunai knife and started looking over it, waiting for the girl to say something, and he wasn't disappointed. See, Sasuke-kun was right, he doesn't even know how to use. That was as far as she got before Naruto flicked his wrist and the kunai disappeared and everyone was looking for it except Sakura. Everyone looked at the pale girl to see the kunai sticking in between her middle and pointer finger. Everyone looked back at Naruto in shock to see him smirking at the damned banshee. So still think I don't know how to use a kunai? Would you like me to demonstrate again with it being a few centimeters over? Asked Naruto. Everyone in the class just looked on in shock at Naruto's cruelness towards the pink-haired bitch. Even if no one in his class really liked her, they all just ignored her instead of openly treating her harshly, but Naruto wasn't one to spare someone's feeling, it seemed. Now that that nuisance is taken care of, where would you like me to sit, mister? Naruto asked, leaving out the name part for the teacher to fill in with his name. Mount name is Iruka and you can sit over there by Hinata Hyuga. Iruka said while pointing to a timid-looking girl near the front of the class. Naruto went over to sit next to the girl Iruka-sensei told him to sit by. Iruka started to teach the class, but it was stuff Naruto already knew from training with Kyuubi. Speaking of, he hadn't heard from the giant furball since he got back, so Naruto activated the mind link he had with Kyuubi. Hey Kyuubi, you okay in there? You've been awful quiet since I got back. Naruto asked the giant fox. Yeah, I'm fine kid, I'm just catching up on my sleep. Kyuubi replied to Naruto. Okay, I just wanted to check and make sure. Naruto said to Kyuubi. That's nice of you kid, but you need to pay more attention. The girl next to you has been trying to get your attention for the past few seconds. Kyuubi told Naruto, letting him know so he wouldn't look crazy or anything. Thanks furball, I'll see you tonight for training. Naruto said. That reminds me kid, you need to up your weights to 20 times gravity. Kyuubi said as a last-minute reminder to Naruto. Damn you Kyuubi. Alright, I'll talk to you later tonight. Naruto said as he sent a bit more chakra to the weight seals he had painted on his wrist and chest after Kyuubi had started to teach him in seals. Naruto had found out when Kyuubi started to teach him that he was fascinated by seals. He was now mediocre in seals. He was by no means a master, but he knew enough to design a few of his own seals and to make his own explosive seals and a few security seals. But he came out of the trance he went into while talking to Kyuubi, suddenly scaring the girl next to him that had been trying to get his attention. Naruto looked at he and she blushed, which confused him a little, but he pushed that thought aside and decided to at least try to be friendly, even if that wasn't really his nature anymore due to Kyuubi almost beating it out of him while training in Maki. Hi, my name's Naruto, what's yours? He asked the girl next to him. Hello, my name's Hinata, welcome to the class. The timid girl said to him. By the way, I am not going to be writing Hinata's stutter because I find it too troublesome. Thank you Hinata for welcoming me. I'm glad to see everyone's not a noisy bitch like a certain pink-haired banshee in the class. Naruto said. Hinata just giggled seeing another person in the class that doesn't like Sakura. Well, me and a few of my friends are going to eat our lunch on the roof. Do you maybe want to join us? Hinata asked a little shyly. Sure, why not? Naruto said, and it seemed Hinata was a little happier throughout the lesson. It took a few hours for lunchtime to come around, and by then it seemed everyone was on the verge of going to sleep. Alright everyone, you may go to lunch but be back in an hour, Iruka said, turning back to his class to see everyone gone already. He just sweat dropped anime style and went back to work getting the class ready for when the students got back. Naruto followed Hinata onto the roof where he saw several of the kids that were in the class. Hey everyone, this is Naruto and he's going to be joining us for lunch today. Hinata said brightly as she introduced Naruto to the group. Hey, you're that kid who did that cool flame thing in the beginning of class, said one of the boys that looked a little animalistic. Do you think you could teach me how to do that? The boy asked hopefully. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry, but that specific jutsu is unique to me, but if you guys would want to train with me, then I would be glad to teach you a few of my jutsu that one included. He said to everyone there. Everyone looked thoughtful before agreeing to train with Naruto, surprising him greatly. Well, could you guys tell me your names since I don't know anyone? Naruto asked while bringing out one of his storage scroll and started to unroll it before taking a kunai out and slicing his palm open and letting the blood drip onto the scroll and pumping some chakra into it. While he was doing this, everyone was watching him intently to see what he was doing. They got a little worried when he sliced open his palm, but they were amazed to see a lunch for 6 appear out of the scroll. Well, everyone dig in, Naruto said while everyone picked up a piece of food and started to introduce themselves. The animalistic boy went first, identifying himself as Kiba Inzuka. Next went the boy with hair shaped like a pineapple, he identified himself as Shikamaru Nara. Next was the chubby boy that introduced himself as Choji Akamaiki. Next was a quiet boy with the shades, he introduced himself as Shino Aburame. They were all enjoying their lunch when a group of 5 older academy students walked through the door on the roof that led back to the school. Well, look what we have here, a bunch of wimpy losers, said the biggest one that was in the middle. Hey, look, they made us lunch, said another of the boys as they started to advance on the 6 friends sitting the roof. Naruto just rolled his eyes at the boys' pathetic attempts to look intimidating to the younger kids. Naruto started to let loose his ki at the boys and it stopped them in their tracks. The boys started to look afraid as they felt the enormous ki directed at them. But when Naruto stood up and got in front of his friends, they seemed to shrug it off and look as arrogant as ever again. Ha, like your pathetic little ki will stop us, you're barely even worth our time, said the leader, but we're still going to beat you and your little friends into little bloodstains on the roof. As the other boys got closer, Naruto started to channel lighting chakra into his hands and disappeared from view, leaving an after image. The older boys started to panic until every single one of them seemed to just pass out. Naruto reappeared in front of his friends, giving them one of his vulpine grins. Hey guys, sorry that took so long, but I needed a second to channel my lighting chakra into my hands so I could overload their nervous systems, forcing them to pass out. Naruto explained to his friends as they looked on in shock at the effortlessness with which Naruto took down those boys. The group of friends finished their lunch and headed back downstairs and back into the classroom as their lunch hour ended. Naruto and Hinata spent the rest of the class time talking until the very end, in which Iruka announced the first interesting thing of the day. Naruto, to get a judgment of where you are, I would like if you would have a taijutsu spar with Sasuke, as he is the best in our class at the moment. Iruka said to the blonde, getting his attention for the first time that day. Sure, Iruka-sensei, I'll fight Imo-tem in the corner there. Naruto said, getting a laugh from his new friends at the joke on Sasuke, as none of them really liked him because of his superiority complex. HN was all that was said from Sasuke as the class got up and headed outside. Once they got outside, the class went to a platform that was built into the ground. Naruto and Sasuke both stepped onto the platform and started to stare each other down. HN, don't worry Dobi, I won't humiliate you too much in front of your little band of losers, Sasuke said to Naruto, shocking everyone at the amount of words he said and making Hinata and the rest of his new friends hang their heads in embarrassment. Naruto's eyes hardened into chips of ice as he started at Sasuke from across the platform. You know, Sasuke, I was going to let you win, but since you insulted Hinata-chan and my new friends, now I'm going to humiliate you. Naruto said coldly, shocking the class at the harshness he was displaying towards the emo bastard. Hinata blushed a deep crimson at Naruto calling her Hinata-chan. And the rest of the group just looked grateful at Naruto defending them. Whatever Dobi, let's just get this over with so I can go home and you can look like an idiot. Sasuke replied. Naruto just looked at him coldly before getting in a taijutsu stance no one was familiar with. Naruto's knees were bent and he had his left hand in front of his right. Little did anyone know this was just an ancient lost taijutsu style that Kyuubi taught him called jujitsu. Iruka got in between the two and explained the rules, which were known in jutsu or genjutsu but purely taijutsu. Once he explained the rules, he brought his hand up and everyone tensed. Begin, Iruka shouted as he jumped off the platform. Sasuke charged at Naruto and started swinging wildly, trying to hit the blonde shinobi. But Naruto effortlessly weaved around each hit, enraging Sasuke further. After a minute of Sasuke trying to hit him, he jumped back from a gasping Sasuke. Naruto just looked at him coldly. Is that all you got, Sasuke-chan? Well then I guess it's my turn. Prepare to pay for insulting my friends. Naruto taunted before he disappeared. Nothing happened for a few seconds before Sasuke seemed to start convulsing for a few seconds before flying forward off the platform and passing out in the grass. Naruto reappeared from where he started and looked at Iruka, signaling him to end the match. Iruka was shocked at the sheer speed Naruto displayed in his fight with Sasuke. He called the end of the match and Naruto walked over towards his friends, who started to congratulate him on his win and thanking him for defending them against what Sasuke said about them. Naruto and his friends just walked away as the pink-haired bitch, Sakura, ran to check on her precious Sasuke to find he was knocked out cold. Naruto and his friends split up at the front entrance to the academy, saying they would see each other tomorrow at the front gate for training. Naruto decided to make a quick stop before heading home for the night. He took to the rooftops to avoid the general population of the ignorant assholes in the village. It didn't take him long to arrive at his destination. He was standing on the rooftop across from a little stand with the sign Ichiraku's ramen stand. Naruto smiled at the nostalgia of the place. Naruto hopped off the rooftop and started to make his way through the sea of glares to his favorite restaurant in the entire village. He walked in and rang the bell on the counter. "Hang on, I'll be out in a minute to take your order," came the shout of an elderly man from the back. "Come on, old man, I haven't been here in 6 years and you keep me waiting. That's bad for business," Naruto called to the back. Naruto cracked up when Kyuubi, the owner of the stand, came flying out from the back and was looking at Naruto as though he had seen a ghost. "Naruto, is that really you?" the ramen store owner asked with a hopeful edge to his voice. "The one and only, old man," Naruto said while still laughing at the man before he was picked up and crushed in a bear hug from the owner. "It's so good to see you again, Naruto. Do you want the usual?" asked Kyuubi while heading to the back to make the order. "Sure, old man, but I only have time for one bowl today, but don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow," Naruto said as the old man was in the back making the ramen. After a few minutes, Kyuubi came back with a huge steaming bowl of ramen and set it in front of Naruto. While Naruto ate the ramen, they chatted about his training, what Maki was like, which Naruto didn't go into a lot of detail about, seeing as humans aren't supposed to know. After about 20 minutes, Naruto said goodbye to the old stand owner and started to walk home. He was almost home when a mob of people stopped him from going any further. "So the demon's back. Why couldn't you stay away and let us be in peace, you monster?" one of the people in the crowd shouted at Naruto. The crowd started to advance on Naruto, but they were stopped in their tracks as Naruto burst into laughter. "What are you laughing at, you demon?" one of the people shouted again. Naruto's laughter died down until he was just chuckling, sending shivers down everyone's spine. "I'm laughing because you broke Gigi-san's law about mentioning the Kyuubi being sealed inside me. And since you broke this law, the punishment is death." Naruto grinned maliciously at the crowd as he cut his finger and swiped it across a tattoo of a sword that was on his biceps, and out popped a sword that's blade was as black as night and the hilt was a snarling fox's head, making it look like the fox was spitting out the blade. "Now everyone, I would like you to meet my sword, Kyuubi," Naruto said, holding out the sword for the villagers to see. "You see, Kyuubi will be dining on your blood tonight," Naruto said, and he charged the blade with fire chakra so that the blade was covered in flames. Naruto dropped his genjutsu, officially scaring the shit out of the villagers as he leapt into the thick of them and started to kill them one by one, decapitating every single one of them. One of the villagers managed to get around him and started to run towards the entrance of the ally, screaming about demons killing everyone. But just as he was about to make it out, an arm made of chakra grabbed his leg and he was pulled back into the ally, and after a few seconds the screams stopped. Naruto looked at the bloody bodies of all the villagers and sighed. He ran through a few hand seals and slammed his hands on the ground. The ground turned into mud to swallow the bodies. After Naruto pulled his hands off the ground, the mud hardened back into the street it was originally. Naruto, not wanting to cause any more trouble, vanished in a swirl of flames just as people were starting to show up to see what the screams were about. But they found nothing, so they shrugged it off and went about their day. Naruto appeared in his apartment and started to undress. Once he got all of his clothes off, he threw them in the washer to get all the blood off of them. Once the washer was started, Naruto went to the bedroom and stored all of his equipment in their respective places before crawling into bed and drifting off to sleep, thinking about how he was supposed to train the friends he had made that day. Naruto woke up at 5 am like he has been for the past year he's been in the academy. He walked to the bathroom and turned on the shower and waited for the water to get hot. While he was waiting, he thought about all the things that have happened in the past year. He and Hinata have grown real close to the point where both of them had strong feelings for the other, but neither of them could get the courage to tell the other how they feel. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, and Shino had all grown strong under Naruto's teachings. They were all the best in their year, with Naruto being on top even though he hadn't shown a sixth of his true power the entire time they were in the academy. He knew he would probably never have to show his true strength. And since he was a Hanyo, and he trained under the Kyuubi no Kitsune, he had considerable strength. The only time he would probably have to show his real power was if he ever found Orochimaru, since the snake bastard was the reason Kyuubi even attacked in the first place. Since Kyuubi had told him that Naruto made a blood vow that he would kill the snake if it cost him his life. Since he was a Hanyo, his vow became binding to where he had to fulfill it to be able to get into heaven or hell. Naruto thought about all of this as he took his shower and got ready for the day he would become a genin of the village. He was happy but also a little sad because he would get to be teamed with hopefully his friends, but this would also mean he had to stop doing S-ranked missions until he has reworked his way through the ranks. Naruto got out of the shower and channeled some of his fire chakra and made it superheat the air around him, effectively drying him off in seconds, since ever since his hair got to be long enough to almost reach the small of his back. Naruto walked back out into his bedroom and got out all of his equipment and replaced the blunt kunai and blunt shuriken with new sharp ones. After doing that, he slipped on his usual crimson muscle shirt that showed a lot of his developed muscles. After that, he put on his Anbu-styled pants and tapped the bottoms for maneuverability. Then he slipped the usual 2 kunai holsters onto both of his legs and clipped on his weapons pouch too. With that done, he shunshined out of his apartment in a bolt of lightning. The academy. Iruka was walking into the class to begin the genin exams when he noticed Naruto not there. Iruka sighed and started to mentally count down. 3.2.1. And right as he reached 1, a bolt of lightning struck the floor and Naruto appeared after the light had gone away. Naruto smiled at his friends in the room. All of them had changed a lot in the past year of him training them. All of their outfits had changed, think of their Shippuden outfits, and they had gained some new weapons. Choji picked a war hammer, and when used in combination with his family's jutsus, it was a deadly combination. Shikamaru chose a ninja after seeing Naruto's. Shino didn't pick any weapons, but he did learn how to use Senbon to hit pressure points and vital points in the body to paralyze and kill his enemies. Kiba didn't pick a weapon, preferring to use his family's taijutsu style, which relied on their claws. Hinata chose a katana and started learning kenjutsu from Naruto. As for Naruto, he started wearing his katana, which he named Kyuubi, on his back horizontal to the ground for easy reach, and he wore his ninjata on his back sticking over his shoulder. Naruto went to sit next to Hinata like he did every day. Kiba had backed off from Hinata after learning of Naruto's feeling toward her. Naruto sat down just as Iruka started to call for everyone's attention. Naruto saw that nobody was paying attention and he wanted to get started, so he started to make one-handed seals under the desk with the whisper of, "Raiden. Thunderclap." There was the sound of a thunderclap silencing the entire class. "Thank you, Naruto, but next time could you not try to cause everyone to go deaf?" Iruka said while rubbing his ears. "I'll remember that for next time, Iruka-sensei," Naruto said while a evil grin on his face. Right now today is the Genin exams that will make you official shinobi of this village if you are able to pass. Iruka started to explain. There will be 5 parts to this test. Weapons accuracy, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and a written exam. Iruka continued in his explanation of the exams. We will begin the Genin exams with the written test, and then we will move to weapons accuracy. Iruka said as he and Mizuki started passing out the test. Naruto got his test and started to work on it. It took him around 20 minutes out of the full hour to finish the test. Those questions were way too easy, even a child who was in the academy for only a few months could have answered them. Naruto thought as he waited for the teachers to call for the next part of the test. Naruto got tired of waiting and opened up his mind link with Kyuubi. Hey Kyuubi, you awake in there? Naruto mentally asked the giant demon inside his head. Yes, I'm here kid, what do you need? Kyuubi responded to Naruto's question. Nothing really, I just need something to do for the next 20 minutes. Naruto said. Why do you always talk to me when nothing's going on instead of in battles or anything? Kyuubi said, a little annoyed that Naruto woke him up just to talk. Oh, quit your whining furball, I actually wanted to see what you think about this test. Kyuubi snorted. To be honest kid, it's a joke, I mean it's just basic knowledge questions. Naruto laughed in his head at Kyuubi's description of the test. Okay furball, I'll talk to you more when the other tests come up. With that, Naruto cut the link between him and Kyuubi as it was about time for them to end the test. He had to wait all of 2 minutes before Iruka called for the test to turn over and for everyone to head outside to the training dummies. Once everyone was at the training dummies outside, Iruka had them break into 4 equal lines in front of each training dummy. Okay class, you each get 10 kunai and 10 shuriken and you have to score as close to the bullseye as you can to get your score. Iruka explained as each student stepped up to the table next to each line and grabbed the kunai knives first. Begin, Iruka yelled. All 4 of the students threw the kunai and then the shuriken. Most of the throws were pathetic and barely made it onto the dummy and only one hit a single bullseye. Naruto laughed his of in his head. He couldn't believe the genin in his class were that bad. All of his friends went and every one of them hit almost all bullseyes. Then Sasuke was up and he hit all of the bullseye except one. Sasuke smirked as he went to stand with everyone else that had already went. It was finally Naruto's turn and he picked up the kunai and flicked his wrist and the kunai disappeared and everyone looked to the dummies to see all of them buried in the bullseye. He then picked up the shuriken and flicked his wrist again, but this time the shuriken appeared all over the dummy. Sasuke smirked at this. It looks like the dobi can't even throw his weapons right, pathetic. Sasuke said in his condescending voice. Naruto just turned around and smirked at him. Actually Sasuke, if you knew anatomy at all then you would know that each of those shuriken hit a vital organ thereby killing your opponent. Sasuke looked at the dummy and was shocked to see that Naruto was right. Whatever dobi, Sasuke said, causing Naruto and just about everyone else to shake their head at the Uchiha stupid. Unfortunately I said most everyone. Yay Sasuke, you sure told him, the annoying pink-haired bitch screeched, causing everyone to develop a headache. Sakura, shut the hell up, Sasuke said, causing Sakura, much to everyone's relief, to actually shut her big mouth for a second. Once everyone had thrown and gotten their scores, Iruka moved on to the platform for the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Okay everyone, to pass the ninjutsu portion of this exam you must be able to make 3 bushins, be able to make a passable henge, and an additional jutsu of your own choice. Iruka started to call everyone's name in alphabetical order, and everyone did the jutsus with some failing right there, but every one of Naruto's friends passed with ease. Most of them used their family jutsu for their additional jutsu. Sasuke Uchiha, Iruka called out. Sasuke smirked and went to stand up on the platform as he started to form the hand signs for a henge. Henge no jutsu, Sasuke called out and transformed into a perfect replica of the sandame. After a few seconds he cancelled the jutsu and started to form more hand signs. Bushin no jutsu, the emo king called out once again and there was now 6 copies of him on stage. Yay go Sasuke, you're the best. Sakura screamed out once again, deafening everyone near her. Naruto shook his head at her stupidity. The only reason the Uchiha made that many copies is because he lacked chakra control. Sasuke snorted at the pink-haired bitch's comment and started to make hand signs again. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, stopping on the tiger handseal. Sasuke took a deep breath before breathing out a giant fireball. Good job, Sasuke, you passed the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Now would Naruto Uzumaki please come up here? Iruka called out. Naruto walked up to the platform and stood in the center. Okay Naruto, you can begin when you're ready. Iruka called out from the ground. Naruto stood there for a second. Ha, he can't even do the jutsu. I knew he was nothing compared to Sasuke-kun, the pink-haired bitch screeched from the stands. I'm thinking Abbott, referring to Sakura as that. For the remainder of this fic, let me know what you think on the matter. Naruto just smirked at her. Oh really Sakura, I have to say her name when someone's actually talking to her. Can your precious emo do this? Naruto asked as a puff of smoke erupted around him. When the smoke cleared, there were 4 clones standing there along with the Yondaime. Okay fine, you got that down. Now one jutsu of your own choice Naruto. Iruka called out while rolling his eyes at Naruto showing off. Kit, use this jutsu. Kyuubi said while sending the hand signs directly into Naruto's mind. Naruto grinned evilly at the crowd below him. Naruto started to flip through hand signs at blinding speeds. Finally settling on the bird sign, a large dragon formed of water rose up behind him and it roared once and flew towards the pink-haired bitch and her emo. Both of them tried to run, but the dragon crashed into them before anyone could do anything to stop it. Iruka turned towards Naruto. Naruto, why would you attack a fellow leaf shinobi with a high-powered jutsu? He screamed at the boy chuckling up on the platform. Don't worry Iruka, unlike some people I can control my chakra output. That dragon was no more high p word than a jet of water. Naruto replied to the enraged teacher. Said teacher turned around and couldn't help but laugh as he saw the 2 drenched students trying to get up only to slip and fall in the massive puddle of water. Okay Naruto, you pass with top score so far from your use of Sealess Bushin and Henge jutsus and for displaying a high-level jutsu, Iruka said while they cycled back through the students' names for the genjutsu part of the exam. Finally it was time for the taijutsu part of the exam. Everyone picked a number and got paired up. The teachers started to call the names out. First was Choji Akamichi versus Shino Aburame, with Shino being the winner from stealing the chakra from Choji through his bugs. Next up was Shikamaru Nara versus Sasuke Uchiha, with Sasuke being the winner after a very close fight, with Shiakamaru being beat by a right hook from Sasuke, knocking him off the platform and disqualifying him. After that was Ino Yamanaka versus pink-haired bitch, with neither winning. After a rather pathetic fight they knocked each other out with a double headbutt. Next was Kiba Inuzuka versus Renji, with Kiba winning by knocking out Renji after releasing his weight seals and gained a burst of speed that let him beat his opponent. Next was Naruto Uzumaki versus Hinata Hyuga.